we briefly mentioned Harry Redknapp. We'll get to him in a moment or two. We've got to get to Joey Barton though first, because I mean, how do you come about this Joey Barton situation? I mean, let's think. Whilst he's been at Burnley, we haven't really had anything bad to say about him, have we? I mean, he's performed much higher than any of us expected. He's kept his head fairly level, bar the Lincoln City game, which he lost his head a little bit. He's been professional, well behaved. He hasn't exactly done anything to anger us. You know, he's been basically, Sean Dyche has managed to get the best out of Joey Barton, which no other manager seems to have been able to do. Which is, I think, something that should go on Sean Dyche's CV. Getting the best out of Joey Barton is something that's definitely worthy of a CV piece to itself. But an 18-month ban for betting. I don't really know how to put this. I think the ban is absurdly long. Because I agree with Sean Dyche on the fact that people have been given less bans for worse things. Eric Cantona got 9 months for kicking somebody. He physically kung fu kicked a person.
Yeah,
a fan.
Crystal Palace fan.
Suarez bit someone. Got, what was it, 8-9 games, and he did it more than once as well, which is a repeat offender. What other things? I mean, retrospective action for diving. I mean, that's essentially cheating. Is it worse than betting? It's influencing the game more, I think. I mean, Joey Barton has strictly stated that the only time he would bet on his own match is either to motivate himself or he wasn't directly involved. When I mean motivating, I mean, you know, he puts him down as first goal scorer. I mean, you know, why? That's one way of motivating yourself, I guess. But I think betting's wrong. I mean, it's against the rules. So sure, there should be a punishment. The timing, I think, is a bit of a pain in the arse, because this is the second player this season that us Burnley fans have had to deal with actions that they have done before they have even got to us. A long time before. You know, we're talking the last bet that Joey Barton made. He come up was what, when he was at Rangers, and the last one he did in England was in 2013. Similar to the Andre Gray situation, you know, the comments he made was probably back in 2013, funnily enough, and they're both being punished years afterwards when they're with us. You know, the club is being punished more than the player. Joey Barton essentially is just is being forced into an early retirement 4 games early, essentially. I mean, I don't know where he would plan to go. I mean, we might have signed him on for another season next year, who knows, but we're definitely not going to sign him now because he's going to be banned. Sure, this gambling thing, I mean, he's admitted he's got a problem, which is great. Previous people have probably admitted that they've had problems in the past, either with alcohol.
Paul Merson, he had a gambling addiction, didn't he, back in '95, didn't he?
Yeah, something like that. Tony Adams had an alcohol addiction. Yeah, he would go and get absolutely smashed one night, and then the following game have a man of the match performance.
Yeah, and the FA wouldn't do out against them, so why should it be any different?
I mean, alcohol, I suppose, is different because, well, I mean, we say influencing the game. You know, I mean, could a player turn up with a hangover? Does that influence the game? Makes you play worse? I don't know. But, God, you could shut down the whole Sunday league if that was a rule. It's a tough one to say. I mean, as much as gambling is essentially harmless in the sense that as long as it's not on your team or, you know, I can understand as to how it can be influencing. You tell somebody, you talk to people who are playing in other games, I've got a bet on you to win or something, and it could affect things. But I mean, the fact that you can't gamble on football at all, you know, if you're other matches in other leagues, you know, that have no effect on what your league is doing and what you're doing, you know, if he's betting on teams abroad and stuff that aren't coming anywhere near England or anything, I can't see why that's frowned upon. You know, gambling's a thing that people do. When it becomes a problem, yeah, sure, that's really bad. I mean, obviously, Joey Barton has a problem, but it's just, I don't know what to think of it. I mean, like I said, I think the ban's a bit harsh. 18 months of being banned from all football activity. I mean, I mean, he's what? He's 34,
33, 34 now. He's 33, 34.
That ban essentially says you've got to retire now. We're not going to let you play. If it was anyone else, do I think it would have been... the fact that it's Joey Barton is the thing that bugs me. Because if it was someone else, would the ban be less? That's kind of my main question. I mean, they released a statement saying that the 18-month ban was the smallest we could give. I mean...
Absolute bloody joke, that. It really is.
I'll let you go on it.
I'm sorry, desperate. Just thinking about it. Oh, let me have my 2 pence here, because I've been dying to say this for quite a while. I had a little rant. Now it's a bit rich coming from the FA, whose cup competition is sponsored. Ironically, one of the cup's principal sponsors is Ladbrokes, which is a betting company. You see betting companies sponsoring football games up and down the country.
What's
football clubs being sponsored.
What's our sponsor? That thing there.
I mean, wouldn't the FA be better off, instead of penalising Barton for 18 months, and he made the point in one of his tweets, why can't the FA ban all betting companies from sponsoring football competitions and football clubs? That way, you eliminate the problem, and that way, you don't have any of this nonsense.
You watch any kind of football on the telly, I can guarantee you will see at least... I'll go with at least 5 to be reserved. At least 5 betting company adverts. Generally,
yes,
it can all be in one flipping ad break as well at half time.
Exactly. And if you ban them, then you eliminate the problem. The FA have done one thing or the other here, and I am so mad because I think, right, and I'm going to be personal. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I'm going to be hypercritical of the FA because I don't know what you think about it. I think they've got a vendetta against Burnley Football Club. They barred Gray for stuff that happened 4 years ago. They've done the same with Joey Barton. Ironically, we're both playing for Burnley at the time. I think it's an absolute joke. We all know what the FA stands for, and it's not the Football Association. They're just a load of old blazers that are stuck in the times. Don't go up to, they don't come up to date, and they just think, oh, it's little old Burnley, we'll punish them. They're not Manchester United, they're not Liverpool, they're not Chelsea. We'll let the big boys get away with it, but we won't let Burnley or anybody else at the lower end get away with it. I think it's a joke. I think the FA are a total world of muppets, and I honestly think 18 months, that is the lamest excuse they can find. That was as short as possible time for a suspension. I could understand it in 6 games or something like that, 6 matches or something like that. I could understand that. I'd accept that. But for 18 months, do me a favour. The FA, they just, anything to protect their silly, squeaky clean image, which in my opinion, they're not exactly squeaky clean themselves if they're letting a betting company sponsor their principal FA Cup competition. So they're contradicting themselves, and I just find it amazing.
Last year, what was the Football League's leading sponsor last year? Sky Bet.
And betting
Sky
company.
Bet.
Another betting company.
So,
it's as I say, Chris, the only way they can tackle this problem is ban betting companies from sponsoring football tournaments and football clubs. That's the solution to the problem. Not an 18-month for some individual. There's probably hundreds of players up and down this land, green and pleasant land, not just here but abroad, that are probably doing the same thing and getting away with it. But then you make the point that Suarez gets 10 games for biting Chiellini. He should have had a worldwide ban, because if that was sin in the street, he'd be serving time.
Well,
it makes my blood boil, Chris. It really does.
Yeah, you mentioned if it was a bigger club, or a bigger athlete. I don't think. I agree with that. I think if it was, well, it would go one or two ways, I suppose. If it was a bigger athlete, either it would be they'd do the maximum and set an example, or what would be more likely to happen, because they're bigger clubs, it affects, the FA are particularly happy with their big clubs, They're the ones that draw the big crowds, they're the ones that make the most money, so they're not going to be detrimental They're going to try not to be detrimental to those clubs. So, if
that's not right, it shouldn't.
It's not right, but
it should be the same for everybody. It should be same punishments. This is why I'm furious at it.
I mean, if Joey Barton was still at Man City, if they'd somehow managed to tolerate all that crap he did back in the day, if this had come to light now and he was at Man City, do I think? Would he be at Man City still? It's a funny question when you've got. Would Joey Barton be in the same category as Yaya Toure?
So he wouldn't be at Man City now.
Well, yeah, but if he was, excuse the humorous image of him sharing a midfield with David Silva, and setting up Aguero instead of kicking him. Do I think he would have been banned as much? Do I think it would have been publicised as much? I mean, it's Joey Barton, so that's immediately going to make it a big thing. BBC Radio 2 and whatnot were talking about it on the radio yesterday whilst I was at work. Burnley are never mentioned on the radio at work, so the fact that it's Joey Barton, it just makes it headline news. I think if it was somebody bigger, if it was Wayne Rooney, I think the ban would be less. If it was one of these big brand stars, it would be less, simply because you'd lose revenue. You would. If it was a Manchester United player or a Liverpool player or a City player or an Arsenal player,
it still doesn't make it right, though, does it? Still doesn't make it right.
I know it doesn't, but the FA, they would lose. Well, I mean, the attendances in the FA Cup go. FA would make a lot of money from that themselves with all the advertising revenue and all that and the TV money. I'm not sure how the revenue works and everything, but that's what I'm going to assume with. Excuse my ignorance if I'm completely wrong. But if a big name is banned and that big name's not going to be there, is the crowd going to turn up for that big name to be there because he's banned? No, I don't think they would. I don't think they would bother.
Also, I want to make a point about Joey Barton as well. Right, underneath all these ridiculously bad headlines he somehow manages to attract, there's actually a really good side to the guy's character. He does a lot for charity. He's a very well educated man. He's very well spoken. He talks a lot of sense a lot of the time, and
stands up for what he believes in. That's a certain
the press do not. I don't think the press see that side to Joey Barton enough. And I wish they would see both sides of the guy, because actually he's probably a nice, down-to-earth bloke.
Well,
yes,
he did a hospice visit with John Flanagan the other day, didn't he? I think, if I read that headline correctly, he was doing something with John Flanagan and spent some time in a hospice with some of the terminally ill people.
Yeah, exactly. That does not get reported enough, and that is what upsets me.
All I saw was one article about that. And this was literally a couple of days before. Joey Barton attracts negative headlines because of his past. His past chases him all the time. Whilst he's been at Burnley, he has been a model, a great example, and given absolutely everything to the cause. Sure, he disappeared off the Rangers because he had this little bit of a delusion about how Scottish football was going to be easy for him, when it wasn't, because all they did was kick him. They didn't actually play football. But, we sat there. He admitted he was wrong, and we were quite happy to have him back. And since he's been back, he has continued as if nothing, we carried on as if nothing happened. He went on loan to Rangers for 6 months, for all I care.
No, but he's had... Listen, I want to try and end this on a very positive note now, because I want to personally say... I'm sure you will probably echo this. I want to say thank you for Joey Barton, because he's given us 2 years, brilliant service in 2 spells to the football club. He really has. He has been a colossus. There were question marks when we signed him. Is he good enough? But we got behind him, and he hasn't let us down on the pitch. He's been an absolute colossus. He's been a great influence on the team. He's a leader of men. Whether you like him or whether you're not, 50% are going to like him, 50% aren't. But Joey Barton, since he's been at Burnley, Sean Dyche has turned him into a proper model pro, and you cannot lock him for that. And Joey Barton has been all but professional. He's been very professional since he's been at Turf Moor. And I would like to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for the memories, Joey. And I said that to him in a tweet today. And I him all the best for the future, and I hope he has a really good life after football. I hope he makes it as a football manager. Actually, to be fair,
he would be very interesting on the touchline.
That'd be good to see, I think.
Well, I mean, I can strictly remember saying in the past that Joey Barton, before his time at Burnley, would look at home in a Blackburn Rovers shirt because of how much of a dirty such and such he was. In the last 2 years, I've been very quick to retract that statement because he certainly would not look at home in a Blackburn Rovers shirt. He's far too good for them. He proved a lot of people wrong in his time with us. Myself included. I mean, I wasn't.
Oh yeah,
I was a little bit skeptical when we signed him. I said it was a good signing if we can get the good side out of him because, you know, you throw away his temperament, which he has done whilst he's been at Burnley, and there's a good player under there. And Sean Dyche, I mean, like I said, it should be something that he can put on his CV. Getting the best out of Joey Barton. He's the only manager who has managed to do that. Pardew did it at times, but he did not get it from him for a consistency over 2 seasons. You know, every time Barton has put on a Burnley shirt, like I said, barring the Lincoln City game, I think at a stretch, he has been the model pro, and he's not the Joey Barton that everybody thought he was beforehand. He was not the thug or the dirty player. He was a model pro and literally put everything on the line. You know, you got an aerial ball in the air, he was going to win that header. You were one-on-one with him, he was going to win the tackle and win it fairly and cleanly. You know, he's been brilliant for us. The fact that he's going to miss out in the last 4 games of the season is going to be a big miss for us.
I do agree with you that the FA should have waited. They should
have waited till the end of the season. I mean, why wait until now? I mean, I know Sean Dyche said something about we knew the decision was going to come during the season, but surely somebody at the FA must have, somebody at the FA must not, like you said, must not like us. They just went, oh look, crucial running for the end of the season for them to stay up. Let's apply the ban now, just to, it's just.
Listen, we all know what FA stands for, and it ain't the Football Association. Let's make that perfectly clear.
Yeah. I mean, the way that Joey Barton's been in the latest fiasco, I'm half tempted to actually go and buy myself a Joey Barton shirt because he may not be playing for us again. But to be honest, in the 2 seasons he's been with us,
I'd do that in defiance.
I would do it in defiance, and I'd wave it around at the West Brom game. I'd be half tempted if I do go, if I get the opportunity to go. But
the shirts are only £20 in the sale, so you might as well.
Well, they're only valid for 4 more. They're only accurate for 4 more seasons. 4 more games, I guess. 4 more seasons. Cool, that'd be cutting corners on the budget. And
one for the bloopers reel, that one.
Yeah, well, but in terms of Barton, I think he's. I mean, there's a lot of club legends that we talk about. To be honest, I think in those 2, in the 1.5 seasons we've had, I think he's pretty much up there with some of the. I'd say, I want to call him a legend. I think he should be. He's definitely up there with that 2009 team. I think he would definitely get in that team.
You know what? He's more of a legend at Burnley than what Ian Wright and Paul Gascoigne were, and they were legend in their own right. But by the time they come to us, they were basically at the end of their careers.
I think Joey Barton, he got better with us, and he's played his best football with us. To be honest, he played pretty well at Newcastle at times, but
it could be a bit reckless at Newcastle.
Yes, the Xavi Alonso. I was just going to call it a tackle, but it wasn't.
Alan Shearer might as well.
The assault on Xavi Alonso that got Alan Shearer fuming, which isn't a bad thing to do when it's Alan Shearer. But but then he'd have the moments like he did against Arsenal, where he was the man. He scored both the penalties and literally ran that midfield after a Boué got sent off. He had his moments at other clubs, but whilst he's been with us, he's been consistent at a high level, and it has been a pleasure to watch Joey Barton play. It really has.
Oh, without a doubt, he's a really good player to watch.
So, yeah, it's a shame he's been banned. I'm going to miss seeing him play at the Turf. It's been fantastic. If he does get the ban reduced, which I hope he does, I'd love to see him play at the Turf. At least well, a couple more times at least, but I don't know where else he'd get a deal. I don't think many people want to touch Joey Barton now after what he's been branded with. But if he retires, I would respect the decision. I wouldn't be surprised because
no, I think that's probably going to be the more likely outcome anyway.
There's only so much crap someone can take, and I think Joey will probably be sick of all the negative headlines that have been following around his whole career. So if he does decide to retire, I'll respect that. If he doesn't, then I wish him all the best in whatever he chooses to go for in football, just as long as he stays away from that lot down the road. Because I don't want him to make that statement true of him looking at home in a Blackburn shirt. God, that makes me shudder just thinking about it. But yes,
so he does his coach status with us, doesn't he? So there you go.
So that's Joey Barton with his rather. And I wish him luck in his battle against his addiction with gambling as well. I think that's to forget. But I know people who have gambling or have had gambling addictions in the past. Yeah. They do get over it with the appropriate help. So I'm hoping that Joey finds the help that he's admitted.
And he's admitted it himself, which is fair play to the bloke. He's come out and said it in tweets and stuff. And that's a big stepping stone for him to make that public, and I think that's a good thing. To come out of all this mess, really, it's good.
With a tongue-in-cheek comment about, I wonder how much money he would have put on Harry Redknapp turning up at Birmingham. Your reaction to that one? We'll move swiftly onto that subject. Harry Redknapp.
First of all, it came as a bit of a surprise when Rowett got sacked and Zola came in. Wow. Zola didn't have the best of times there. I think he was going to get sacked anyway, but I didn't honestly at Birmingham with 3 games to go. He's had a bit of a bad start though. They lost against Villa, and even worse for them, they've lost Paul Robinson for the rest of the season because of a misdemeanor in that derby match. I haven't seen the incident because the game wasn't televised, but it's not the best way to start off your Birmingham career, losing to your nearest rivals, is it? Right. But the good thing for Birmingham is they still have more points on the board than the bottom 3. I think Redknapp, if he went, he's even come out and said if he doesn't keep Birmingham up, he doesn't want to get paid now. And he's also admitted as well that he hasn't seen Birmingham City play. Now, if you were potentially going to be taking over a football team, you want to go and do your homework on the team you're going to take over and manage, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So he's already on a downer with the Birmingham fans before you start. But he has got pedigree at getting teams out of trouble. He didn't get the nickname Harry Houdini for nothing. But whether he's got the magic touch at his time of life now remains to be seen. But I still back Birmingham to get out of it. I think there are 3 worse teams. One of them, our near neighbours down the M65. But it was a bit of a surprise. I think if he can keep them up and get some, and pull out his legendary transfer bargain basement buys and get them playing as a team next season, they could be promotion contenders if he stays beyond next season.
They could, but there's a little thing that's called karma, which has struck Birmingham rather heavily this season.
It has.
Their decision to sack Gary Rowett was, well...
It was one of the worst decisions I have ever seen for a long time. How can I
put it politely? Unfathomably stupid. That's the polite way of putting it. If I wanted to say it bluntly, I'd ask Gordon Ramsay to say it, because all the words in his dictionary would cover it. Idiot sandwich is another one. That could work too. They were sitting pretty just on the edge of the promotion places under Gary Rowett. They sacked him for no good reason at all. And then they appointed Zola. Now, I'm not being funny, but Zola's track record is
not great.
Nearly relegated West Ham. I can't remember who he managed after that. Was it Watford?
Yeah, he managed Watford for a spell, and then...
That didn't really work out, did it?
No, I think he got him into the playoffs one year and then lost out to Crystal Palace. It went up at their expense.
That was probably the closest he got to any kind of managing success. And then he's come to Birmingham and, well, yeah, sent a team that was fairly strong and pushing for promotion and damn nearly relegated them. But
yeah, and it's not the other. I mean, Birmingham's board aren't the only ones that have made madcap, stupid decisions. I mean, Leyton Orient in League Two. Look what's happened to them.
They're not in League Two for much longer. They're going to be in non-league.
No, they're not, and it's because of their chairman. Barry Earns resigned as club president because of it. He doesn't want to be associated with it. The Italian owners there have gone through 5-6 different managers this season, and unfortunately, Orient, and they're a grand little football club down in West London, East London. They are a nice little football club. They were well won for years under Hearn. They got to a FA Cup semi-final as recent as 1978. A great name in London football. 133 years of league football, now going to be lost forever. Unless they can stave off a winding up order and they can get a good enough squad and get some stability at the club to get them out of the conference next season.
I imagine they'll be fine in the conference next season. The good thing about the conference is, for a football league side that's been established for a long time, it's quite easy to stabilise yourself and get back up. Good examples have been Luton. Sometimes it takes more than a season or two, but they come back a lot stronger. Luton are fairly good.
Yeah, I mean, Lincoln took about 6 seasons before coming back up this year. They took 6 seasons.
Yeah, but I think they'll be a lot stronger this time round. Good examples of clubs there have been plenty of good non-league clubs that have come out of non-league out of the blue and established themselves well. You look at Fleetwood as a really good example.
Accrington, Stanley, Morecambe, always punching above their weight every single year. Stanley are not far off the League Two playoffs either.
Yeah, Fleetwood are knocking on the door of automatic promotion to the Championship. Yeah. Who else? Who else was it? Stevenage. We can all remember that great FA Cup run they had back in 2010 when they went to Old Trafford for in the FA Cup. I think it was the FA Cup quarterfinals when they still had replays.
Yeah.
And then there's plenty of good ones. I'm trying to think of another club that's gone down into the conference and then come back up. I would like to point out that there are worse things that could happen to Leyton Orient. You could go into liquidation and end up having to go the route of Hereford. Hereford United went completely under, and are now blitzing their way back up through the leagues. I've been paying close attention. I've been paying quite a lot of attention to Hereford FC, who are, like I said, blitzing their way back up the leagues. I can't remember what the division they're in at the moment, but all I know is they win more or less every game by 4-0. They are fairly dominant down there. So,
have they brought back Ronnie Radford from retirement?
Well, they could do. That's one of the good benefits you'll have in the conference is your stadium. If you have a big stadium, in comparison to the other clubs, you immediately have a financial advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I think their ground holds something like 8,000 to 10,000 Brisbane Road.
So, clubs down in the conference generally, you won't see many more with an average attendance of maybe 2,000 at best. I know that Braintree Town, just down the road from me, they have a stadium that's capable of holding about 3,000 people. But I imagine I don't know what their average attendance. It's probably about 1,000. So
probably going to be at least 800 to 1,000, isn't it, down there?
The Orient, basically, if the Orient fans come together and basically just go, just turn up to every game. If you fill that stadium, it's going to make the players play better immediately. But financial wise, it's going to help the club massively. So they'll get the opportunity to bounce back. Chances are, provided they sort out their ownership, they'll bounce back at the first attempt. That's probably what would happen. The only problem that you have is that only first place goes up automatically. It's very difficult to get back out.
And then and the conference playoffs are more than a lottery than the Football League playoffs as well. So
the only there's one way. There's a couple of ways that they can come back if they keep hold of all of their players, or most of the good ones anyway. They should bounce straight back up. If they lose a lot of their players, they have the opportunity to invest in youth. Give them a chance, because chances, if you're basically a professional club dropping into semi-professional for a year or two, you'll have the right setup, You'll have good assets to bring you out, and you should be a class ahead of everyone else, especially if you've been in the Football League as long as Leyton Orient have. The setup will be there, so all they've got to do is just focus about playing that football. Ignore what's going on behind the scenes, unless, of course, the worst comes to worst and liquidation comes about, and just get on with playing football. Because if they do that in well, it's not called Blue Square, it's called Vanarama now, I think it is. If they do that,
National League, what we can call conference. I don't know
National
what it's
League. If they do that in the National League, just focus on playing their football. They'll come straight back up without any problems. There are some good teams down there, like Forest Green and various others. But like I said, one of the teams that's just down the road from me, Braintree Town, they're struggling to stay in it. But there's quite a few good teams down there. But like I said, if they stick to their principles, Leyton Orient will be fine, and they'll be back before we know it. A year's not that long in terms of football. It might take a while for the season to go by, but I can still remember that Stephen Gerrard retired what feels like last season. It was a couple of seasons ago now. Let's not forget, it only feels like yesterday. So, but yeah, that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.
See you later.